welcome in. Thank you guys for joining another video of the Real Estate Investors YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jordan Aubrey, and today what we're going to be talking about is the big topic for discussion, and that's going to be the Trump administration, the CDC, passing the laws for the renters, postponing all evictions, bringing them to a halt until the beginning of the year, right? Stick around. We're going to discuss everything and where do it leave you as a real estate investor, as a landlord, getting ready to purchase this, buy and hold. How are you going to actually put this particular tenant out if anything goes south? So today I'm going to break down exactly how your tenant is actually can qualify for this, right? So everybody can. It's supposed to save 4 million people or 4 billion people, or however many people actually rent in America. But essentially everybody won't be able to qualify for this. So let's stay tuned and make sure, if you like the video, definitely make sure you make the thumbs up turn blue, right? It helps out with me getting to a wider reach. And I'm sure you want to help me do that. And next step is make sure, if you like anything real estate investing, anything finances, anything entrepreneur, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you really like my content, cut on the bell notification so you get these gems whenever they come out. So let's get started. So with this being said, we're getting started into actually the new act that was passed, right? The Trump administration passing this law to save all these particular tenants. What's going to happen? Do we buy a property? Do we not buy a property? What are the next steps for us? Well, I've done a lot of research on this topic, and I've even waited a couple of days to start making this video because I've wanted to just get all the information. That way I can bring you exactly what matters the most. Okay, so before we talked about the CARES Act and what was happening in the beginning of the pandemic, what ended up happening in the CARES Act is that any landlord and even apartment building, as long as they had a government-backed loan, that particular landlord would be able to go into forbearance with that particular house, didn't have to worry about anything, and they didn't have to collect rent, right? So it was a give and take. The government was doing any back loans by the government that were helping you out, and if the tenant wasn't able to pay, it just is what it is. They weren't able to pay, still making partial board payments or whatever the case to bring it current. So the CARES Act kind of protected the landlord. This particular act don't really protect the landlord, but the thing about it, there's so many stipulations and hurdles you got to jump over. Everybody may not qualify. So you may actually end up with one, maybe two, maybe three particular tenants that can actually qualify, but everybody's not going to be able to qualify. So let's jump in here so you'll know as a landlord, do your tenant qualifies for this particular act and protection over their particular house and can't be evicted. Let's jump right into it. So the first one I would say is it has to be COVID related, right? They have to be able to prove that they're no longer working the hours they was working due to COVID. They're no longer working the job they had before when they qualified for the rent due to COVID, right? That's number one. They got to be able to prove that the income is lost and a significant loss to force them to be able to put them in a position where they can no longer pay rent, right? So that's very key indication. Right now, there's a lot of people, unemployment is hovering around 10%. So there's a lot of people that's still unemployed. Some people have found opportunities to work and so forth, but there's still a lot of people that's unemployed. But with that being said, you gotta make sure there's been a significant loss due to COVID. So if it's a school teacher, you still gotta pay your rent, right? You're still getting paid from the government. You still gotta pay rent. Other professions are still getting paid. They still gotta pay rent. No loss right there. So if they don't pay their rent, they can get evicted, right? So that's peace of mind as a landlord. Next, they gotta get help from the government, right? So if they got a stimulus check, anything like that, they got to be able to go out and get help from the government, whether that's unemployment. That's mainly the biggest one as far as a tenant would be concerned. They got to be able to source and then use their best efforts to actually get government assistance, right? And with that being said, if they can get some of that government assistance, they still need to pay your rent, right? So that's number two. They got to go get the government assistance. There's no freebies happening right here. The U.S. understands it. The government understands it. So they're making sure that they're not handing out any freebies, loss of job, and you got to get assistance from the government. If you can't get assistance, that's when they step in, right? Next one, income restrictions. So it is based kind of like the stimulus check, right? If you got a stimulus check, you will qualify for free rent. If you didn't get a stimulus check earlier this year when it was in the CARES Act, when it was giving all the stimulus check, this is not for you, right? You can still be evicted. If your tenant didn't get a stimulus check, they can still be evicted, right? If they're not paying their mortgage and there's loss and all that good stuff. So they got to qualify and hit these particular hurdles. So that's one thing you need to know. If they made over 6 figures last year, they can't qualify, right? Because those particular people didn't qualify for a stimulus check. So just understand that when we're talking about the stimulus, or just understand that when you're talking about your tenant, what shoes are they in? Do they fill these shoes or do they not, right? Because this law may not apply to them. Next, government assistance must be used to make partial payments. So just like anything else, whenever you have a tenant that's struggling, you want to work with that particular tenant, because as a landlord, me personally, I would rather keep that tenant there as opposed to evicting that tenant. And that's regardless if we had a pandemic or not. That was in a good market. That was in a bad market, right? You kind of got, I look at it like this. If I had to evict the tenant, it cost me to get the property ready to rent out. If I can work with the tenant, now and maybe I can charge them a late fee or whatever the case may be. But if I work with them, it's not going to have to cost me to actually put into the particular property to get it rented out. Same thing with anything. You just want to make sure that you're working with your particular tenant. So if they're getting government assistance from the government, right, and it's still not necessarily enough, all you need to do is work out a payment plan with that particular tenant, or you just need to just have a conversation. What's fair? What do rent needs to be? What can you pay right now? Now, when you're working out these partial payments, that does not mean January 1st, you don't get all of your money back out of it, right? Partial payments is not paid in full, but it is something that you're giving them a break on for the next couple of months, to be able to go and do exactly what they need to do to get in a better position, to find a better opportunity to work and pay you rent. Essentially, that's what happens. So even if they get to a point where they're evicted or they're not evicted, at the end of the term, once the CDC and everything lifts the regulations, at that particular point, you'll be able to get the rest, the remaining of your money. So they can make partial payments. If they're on unemployment right now, they can make partial payments to the landlord, and you can still collect fees. Any kind of rents that's not paid up, they're still due that money at the beginning of the year after that particular time period, right? So that's one thing that we got that you should work in your favor. But man, just like anything you do, you want to make sure you're a human. You want to have that one-on-one relationship with that particular seller. You want to make sure that you're taking care. I said seller. I'm sorry. With that particular tenant, you want to make sure you're taking care of that tenant, because if you're not taking care of that tenant, a lot of times you're not going to take care of a lot of tenants, and you'll end up being a slumlord. You don't want to be a slumlord. You want to own great rental properties. You want to have a great relationship with your tenants. That way, the cash flow, the life is a whole heck of a lot easier, and you're not worried about anything, any properties biting you in the butt, or you end up with a lot of properties, a lot of rundown properties, people not taking care of anything, you're evicting everybody. So you want to make sure, if you're a good landlord, you want to make sure you continue to be a good landlord. Look at people as people, don't look at them as dollar signs, and go and make that move and help them out and work on a partial payment type of program. So with that being said, like I said, number 4, they have to work out a partial payment. Number 5, the last one to qualify, they have to be able to prove that the eviction will actually render this particular tenant homeless, right? So I don't know what that process looks like. I just know that's the qualifying steps, but they have to be able to prove that in order for the eviction to get postponed. So here you are, you got 5 different steps as far as a tenant and that has to qualify for this particular process. But essentially, every step that I saw up here, and we'll go over it again. Number 1, it has to be a COVID-related loss of job or work status, right? And then you got to get the government help, unemployment. You got to be able to get some government help. You got to outsource as much government help as you can possibly find, right? And then you got income restrictions. Got to make less than $100,000 or 198 if they file jointly, right? Husband and wife. Government assistance must be used to make partial payments still. And then render a person homeless. So if they're not qualifying for these particular 5 rules, which puts hurdles in this process, right? It puts hurdles. I'm pretty sure somebody's going to make it to the point where they don't have to pay anything because life happens. It happens to all of us. But this idea of this act or this law, whatever it is that's being passed, is halting all the evictions. is going to save tenants that's squatters. It's not going to save squatters, right? It's not going to save anybody that's doing damage to the particular property. It's not going to save anybody that's in the house that's condemned or illegal activities happening there. It's not going to save the horrible nightmare stories that we run into as landlords on a daily basis, right? It's not all the time, but sometimes we run into these particular properties. So if somebody's vandalizing the property, you still have rights to kick them out. If somebody is doing illegal activity, you still have rights to kick them out. All that good stuff, you still have rights to kick that particular tenant out. So don't think of it as, should I buy this property? Am I going to be stuck with a tenant that's not going to pay? No. People are people, and a lot of people are still working through this. And for the most part, if you screen your tenant right, and most people want to be fair about the situation. Everybody understands it costs for something, and nobody just want to do something that's not going to put them in the best situation, or we want to make sure that everybody's taken care of in a time like this in a pandemic. But this right here is not going to save everybody. They got to jump through those loops and go over those hurdles just like we do as landlords. But with these hurdles in place, it sure does allow us to sleep easy at night knowing that they got to qualify for a lot of things. And even if they're getting government assistance, we still should have some money coming in. If not all, we still should have some, and everything got to be documented. So with that being said, if you like the video, definitely make sure you turn the thumbs up blue. And if you want to subscribe, make sure you do it. We drop content like this on a daily basis. Try to make sure you guys get the relevant information that's out there as far as finances, real estate investing, entrepreneur tactics. That way you can grow your business and ultimately live the life you want to live. Hey, keep winning.